Yeah. All right, this is Tom and Ken, and we are here today. We're going to be talking about cultural variability, talking about the taken for granted world, and we are going to be sort of exposing and examining culture. A lot of times we are immersed in our own location, our own nation, our own community, and we don't realize the uniqueness of what goes on in our community or the habits that we develop, the language that we have, our disposition, the way we engage in the world. It seems natural to us until we experience something in a different location. Then we realize, well, that's actually really unique. And it's really fascinating to try to understand where culture enters our body, enters our space, and the way that we engage in the world. Today we have Professor David Engel, Professor Joshua Evans here to join us. Primer maestros en español. In sus colegio, or nos colegio, perdóname. And they're here to share their experiences about traveling and this idea of the taken for granted world, of things that we become accustomed to. They're very unique though, and I think they provide such a valuable perspective, and we welcome them into this conversation about cultural practices.
Thanks for being here, guys.
Yeah,
that's great. We're happy to do this.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Well, tell us.
David or Josh, either way.
Yeah, share some perspectives with us.
Well, Josh and I co-presented a little session, and really the angle on it was going incognito in Europe. But as we were sharing about some of our observations, because both of us spent a number of years living in Spain, we started to share some of these things about preparing to maybe travel and not stick out. It came up that some of these things are just ways of looking at our world that we might not have thought about before living in a different culture. And I know that one of the things we had talked about was just something as simple as hand gestures, how we use our hands. And I had never thought about counting with my fingers until I lived overseas. And now when I count with my fingers, that's 1, this is 2, this is 3. Whereas before it was more 1, 2, 3. These just little kind of subtle things that, maybe you take for granted. But then as you see how another culture does it a different way, you go, I wonder why I've always done it that way.
Or gestures that, as you guys were saying, we take for granted. Like here in the United States, when somebody's acting crazy or saying something crazy, we put our finger up and we go like that. And I don't know if you've seen this one, David, but in Spain, it's you put your finger on your temple and kind of twist it back and forth.
Yeah.
Or eating isn't like, we kind of use this gesture for eating in the States. And then in Spain, it was kind of point at your mouth and go like that, a comer. So just little things where at first you're like, what does this mean? I have no idea what this is. And then,
or if you're calling somebody to you in the United States, you do this. In Spain, you do it like this.
Mm-hmm.
What about I'm not sure if this is in some European countries, I'm not sure about in Spain. And I believe it was Nixon, Ken, you can kind of correct me or not. They came off the plane. So the victory sign, right?
Oh,
peace.
Peace, victory, peace, or the peace sign, and one of them is actually a vulgar. Is that in Spain, or is that?
That's in the United Kingdom. So if you go to England and you want 2 beers at the bar, 2 pints, you order 2 pints. You don't order 2 pints, because then the bartender's not going to come over and serve you because you just told him to something rather rude. So
right on.
Yeah, those little things.
Speaking about
how about like neighborhoods and communities? Or differences between your experience in Madrid, Spain, compared to, say, here in Central Oregon?
There's definitely less personal space in several senses of the word. Spaniards, in my experience, are very much, we would say they're up in your business. Like they get right next to you and talk to you and touch you. Just that concept of having a personal bubble that we Americans value so much.
Even if there is space?
What do you mean? Like,
well, like I might be in this big hallway and they're still going to get close to us.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, if they're going to talk to you, then
and
totally.
More often than not, they're going to be touching you. Now we have people that are maybe more physical and they'll touch you and, when they're talking, but by and large, the culture is such that people are going to be close closer proximity, and there's usually a lot of touching that goes on.
Yeah, I can't imagine how they're dealing with social distancing right
Oh
now.
yeah,
Well, we've
that's
seen that.
that's where I started
We've
thinking
seen that.
about. Well, so
You know,
this is
another
a
thing too with greetings, sometimes in the United States, we shake hands, very traditional in Spain to give 2 kisses on, you know, the sides of the cheek.
Mhm.
And that's with people you've never met before. You don't even know these people. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's gonna be my question. Like part of like, and it's can be really challenging because there's a lot of tributaries to get to where we're at today. Although the river is way upstream. So our Puritan values that really shape our ideas about sexuality and our sexual practices that we don't. There's a long history that shaped our culture in that regard.
Yeah.
That would be different than in a place like Spain would not be influenced by those values that we've taken on. So public displays of affection, or as you mentioned, Dave, just like kissing each other on the cheek. What about like just general public, just just like what we call PDAs, public displays of affection, or how people express affection, not necessarily romantic. Like we think about that as being a romantic. You only express affection if it's romantic.
That makes me think of a couple different things with regards to Spain. One of them is in the television and movie industry. And I don't think this is exclusive to Spain. This has been my experience in other parts of Europe as well, where things like sexuality aren't frowned upon the way they are here with our Puritan values, as you mentioned. And you could watch a television show in Spain and see, you know, some brief nudity and or a sex scene, and it's not really, you know, like, oh my God, what's happening? But likewise, I've heard Spaniards say when they watch American television, they're like, you know, there's no sex, but it's incredibly violent. So that's one of the things. And then the other thing I was thinking of is public displays of affection in Spain are pretty common, especially if you go to like a park on a weekend, like El Parque de Gran Retiro in Madrid. I don't know what would the equivalent park be in Barcelona? It would be
there's La Ciutadella.
La Ciutadella, where I don't know if this is your experience, Dave, but sometimes I'd be at the park with friends and you look over and you'd be like, oh, that couple's making out. And you're like, oh, it might be more than making out that's happening. And that's okay. That's their business. I'm just going to keep walking. And
yeah, where else are they going to do it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But there are some other just gestures of affection. And I think of an interesting one between men, to kind of say, hey, I appreciate you. There's this idea of putting the hand on the back of the neck, and sometimes even maybe grabbing the tuft of hair there. Of course, I have a lot of hair to grab, but just that gesture there, that I had never experienced that in the United States. I was kind of, what's going on? But it was this sense of, hey, good job. I appreciate you. So.
Well, I don't know how that would work for me, but you know, there's not a lot to grab back there.
But again, it's just kind of, the hand on the back of the neck, I would say.
Instead of the scruff, we'll just grab your neck.
Grab the neck.
Right. That's right.
I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that and see if there's going to be see what kind of reaction I get around people in the community start walking around and grabbing.
You're going to break the social norms?
Yeah, breaking our norms. Hey,
what do you
Josh,
say?
if you could
social
talk,
norms, yeah.
Our social norms, yeah. Josh, if you could talk for a minute about one thing I appreciated, or the example you provided about engaging with customer service, or you know, a cashier, or you go get a cup of coffee, and your kind of reactions and your thoughts about getting a cup of coffee and how that seemingly normal.
I should mention that this point we're going to talk about, I noticed not only a difference between Spain and Central Oregon, but also when I moved to Central Oregon 10 years ago from the Midwest, from Ohio. But one of the things here in Central Oregon that we know is that our baristas and the people making our burritos and whatnot are super friendly. Like they smile at you, they ask how your day is going, and it's just very friendly. And in Spain and in Ohio, although in a slightly different way, it's much more efficient and service-based. Like, this is the nature of our relationship. You give me money, I give you a good or service, and that's it. And it's not particularly unfriendly, but I just think it can be a little bit disarming when you leave Central Oregon to other parts of the country or abroad and just realize not everybody wants to know my life story. They just want to give me a latte.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like an example of that, you go into Jackson's Corner here and they're like, so what are you up to today? And I'm going, why do you need to know what I'm up to today? Whereas you're in Barcelona and you walk up to the counter and they're going to probably say like, dime, which is like, and, like, what do you want? Like, why haven't you told me what you want already? And then you say un cortado or whatever drink you want. And there's no like, oh, okay, great. Just a second. It's like a minute or two later, they'll plop it down there was no words exchanged there.
Yeah, and also servers, they won't, like, have you guys been to restaurants before where you go in and they're like, is this your first time here? Can I explain how our restaurant works? And when I've been abroad, it's just like, this is a restaurant. You know what we do here. We're going to give you food and drink and you're going to pay us for it. And that's it.
No, like, hey, how you doing today? Oh, I see that you got a
Mhm.
cute dog. Oh, I have a dog too. And,
I mean, unless you've got a relationship, like if it's a place that, David, you mentioned this when we did our presentation, where if you go to like a bar or a cafe and you're there more often than you're not, then eventually you get that relationship going with the employee. And yeah, there'll be some small talk. There'll be, how you doing? How's the family? But usually it takes a little while to kind of break that wall down.
Yeah. Yeah. On the flip side, and this isn't true with everybody, but I do feel like there's a little bit of this, and I don't know what your experience has been, Josh, in Spain anyway, people willing to maybe go the extra mile when you have expressed a need. For example, we're looking for, this particular address. That was maybe before Google Maps, but you go in and you're a little turned around, you go into a bar and you're like, hey, can you help me? I'm kind of looking for this. Or you stop somebody on the street. And I've had many experiences where it's not just pointing, but they just say, come with me. I had an experience, this is a true story, in Malaga, in the south of Spain, where I was trying to find the train station and I was kind of lost. And I was on foot, and this woman was on a scooter, and she just said, get on the back of my scooter, and took me there, so all kinds of
Oh, Dave froze.
Oh, Dave froze.
We can edit that.
We'll keep going.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, kind of near the end. So sorry to lose Dave there.
Yeah. I have had similar experiences though when you do reach out and ask for help. Like I was in 2017.
People going extra mile.
Oh, there he is.
You're
back.
gone there, David, for a little bit. Are you back? You're still gone. Oh, here we go. I got to admit him. He left. Now he's coming back in.
I'm back.
Two of them.
There's two of them.
The first one's
David,
first.
man, we're gonna keep on going.
And
Which one? There we go.
Hey, all right.
There you
Hey,
go.
so
And I knew to leave and come back because I had this happen in a class this week where I heard my students say, where's David? I think he's been abducted by aliens. And I'm like, oh, because I was seeing everybody fine.
Mm-hmm.
And so, life on
so-
Zoom.
So probably just from time we'll try to. So we'll finish up. I'll just kind of put a last blurb in there. I'm not sure if you want to finish up. I got to figure out how to edit that last part where you disappeared. You were, if you want to try to finish up that conversation, it'll be a little jumpy probably when I edit that, but that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to finish up your thought there, and then I'll close it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the one about people going the extra mile?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've had this experience where you've asked somebody for directions, and rather than just pointing, they will take you there. They'll just say, follow me. And then I was sharing how one time I was in southern Spain in a pretty large city, and I was trying to get to the train station, and I was a little bit turned around, and I had a woman, probably a middle-aged woman, who was on a moped and said, get on the back, I'll take you there. And it was like maybe, I don't know, 6 blocks away, but we're there. So
Sweet. Well,
Great.
thanks, Professor Evans and Professor Engel for joining in and for sharing your great perspectives. A lot of cool stuff, good stuff for thought, for sure. I don't know, Ken, you got anything to kind of?
No, that's great, guys. Thanks for giving us an insight into, different perspectives to help us, see what we, if you're a fish in water, then, you don't even know you're in the water. So it's good to be able to realize that, yeah, we're swimming in a different kind of water, and even though we're used to it.
Mhm.
Now maybe we can see it a little better.
Yeah,
And
you'll learn more about your own culture, be it Oregonian, American, whatever you consider your own culture to be, by leaving it and then coming back than you ever will if you just stay there your whole life. So
Very true.
Cool.
Mhm.
Great way to end it. Thanks again.
Yeah.